everything is gray first. And when in doubt, start with a gray. This is like a mind-boggling concept, but look at the picture to the top left. This is a picture I took through the car's window. Of course, I wasn't driving, don't worry, but it really showcases an interesting phenomenon where things are a lot more gray than one would think. When you look at it, you can recognize a lot of blues, a lot of reds, a lot of greens, but the thing is, what really makes this scene what it is just how someone lowered the entirety of the saturation all the way down. Imagine a saturation knob, it's lowered all the way down. There are a few reasons for that compound each other. First off, we're painting or looking at the view against the sun. And by the way, look at this quick sketch with watercolor and a pen and a brush. That's something I've been enjoying doing lately. The color doesn't matter, you won't see it later. Keep it neutral, whatever you want. Make it saturated, doesn't really matter in my experience. But we're painting against the light here, and that already makes things gray. But to compound that effect, we're also painting through the window, through the glass, which makes everything even more kind of faded. And so what I'm going to show you is if you default to a gray color, that alone will fix a lot of your potentially wonky colors and kind of weird effects that you're not interested in. Or maybe even it will fix the cohesion of your colors, okay? Now, people are going to ask, people love asking what colors I use. I am a big fan of neutrals, just gray colors. But the trick is, that's the entire idea of this video, but the trick is you want to always push them in a certain direction. So it's going to be a very gray blue, a very gray red. If you almost err on the side of going too gray, you'll probably do okay, and you'll get your chances to bring out some colors. So what you're seeing now is kind of a warm gray. That's what I'm seeing on the back of the car. I am skipping the taillights because my plan is to put some vibrant color there to show somebody's braking. And I vary it a bit. Now I add a bit more blue, a bit more yellow, just maybe neutralizing it towards the bottom. Maybe it reflects a bit more of the sky. But look at how subtle this is. The tendency we have as painters is to always exaggerate. You see a change into cool, you go really cool. You see a change into warm, you go really warm. The end result feels very amateurish in that regard, and advanced painters can see, oh, that's where you over-interpreted. By the way, I don't think I've ever used that word really in a video that way. So over-interpretation, that's a new key term here. I'm probably going to use it again in the future. So you've probably over-interpreted what you're seeing, whereas if you took a bit of a more nuanced approach, the funny thing is you'd get a better result, but even more ironically, it's easier. It's less mixing time, less time to get your paints to shine. You just use whatever neutral mix you have. And every time you introduce a bit of a stronger paint. And you will see in the context of this back of the car, later I'll add a bit of a more saturated blue, and you'll see how you get the chance to do that. You get the chance to make certain colors pop, and it just looks fantastic. Now, one more key element here. Against the light, through the glass. What does it mean? Not only are the colors more desaturated, they are also light. Nothing here is dark, really. And this is a constant, I don't want to say struggle, but a point of attention that I need to keep focusing myself on. Don't go too dark. Don't overinterpret the values, right? Overinterpretation of the values, that's another thing. You want to keep things in kind of the ballpark right range. I'm not a perfectionist. I don't think perfectionism is the thing anyone's after. Almost like 99% of people aren't after that. If you're truly and honestly after perfectionism, awesome, good for you. Most people just don't get a lot of satisfaction from it. Some people do, and that is okay. Some people are an extreme type A, and I consider myself kind of a type A. I don't like these types, it's silly anyway, but just to reflect the idea to you. And even I don't strive for perfection necessarily. I strive maybe for perfection in perfecting my own style. But I do not want my painting to be a copy image of what I'm seeing, and I also don't necessarily want it to look perfect. And let me give you one more kind of weird, left field answer here. I remember when I got very serious about painting about a decade ago, I would say, like really upping my skills and starting to sell more. Realism was definitely in vogue. Not necessarily hyperrealism, but hyperrealism was quite popular too. But realism in general was quite popular. and realistic impressionism. And I have to say, right now we're having a similar effect to when the cameras have been introduced many like years ago. I don't remember when cameras were first introduced, but that spawned a whole movement of painters and paintings that defy and reject realism. And I'm not saying we have the same thing right now, but think about it. With AI, you have so much stylized work and so much kind of perfect little brush marks. And even when it's trying to mimic a real physical painting, it fails because it looks too perfect, right? So I would say there is probably a wave of upcoming more impressionism, expressionism that's going to be popular. You know, that's what my gut tells me. Things that feel a little more human might get a new value proposition behind them, if you really want to think about it from a higher kind of standpoint, you know. If you've been up to date on what's going on in the world, and a lot of weird things are going on, and I'm kind of worried in many senses for the future. But I do feel like there might be an uptick in impressionism and expressionism more than realism, because you know robots can do realism, robots can do perfect. The imperfection is the thing that's missing. So in any case, just another thing to have in mind. But look at this car here to the left, right? A taxi. It is more bluish because it's white. The car in front is gray. The car on the left is white. That does lead to a bluer feeling, right? It just feels more blue. And that's okay. That's part of it. But look at how gentle that blue is. Just look at how it barely can pass as a blue, right? This is a gray. You'd see this in the context of some other things and you'd be shocked. So just to give you kind of a higher level picture of where we're at, we need to add that big kind of foliage to the left, right? There's a lot of trees here across the street. And we want to take advantage of that beautiful, not lens flare, but that effect of the light shining on the glass and creating interesting patterns. We also want to add the sky, believe it or not. I feel like it will enhance the sense of light, and it will give more meaning to those clouds and the paper white. So we'll go for that. We'll see how we can capture that thing. Now look at what I'm doing here. I'm starting to paint this shape, but I'm also attempting to respect the variance in value. It's very mild, and the darkest dark isn't that dark. I might end up pushing it darker than it is just for impact, but it's not even that dark. You'll notice somewhere around here it starts to get darker towards the bottom, and it's a wonderful way of conveying the light. But how easy is it to miss it and just paint the whole thing as one big shape? That's one of the traps that we fall into as artists, is the trap of flattening things, of seeing things, imagining, painting things as we think they are rather than what they actually look like, when the reality is the way it actually looks like is easy to portray sometimes. And we make it hard, right? Because look, it's just a variance of value. And you will see, the more details we add, the more we add of the sky, you will see this beautiful lens flare feeling effect where this light means something. Okay, you will see it. It will happen. By the way, this is a great opportunity to mention, if you want to learn how to paint loosely, check out the frustration-free watercolor course. If you're not there yet, I highly recommend you join. It's like $49, one-time payment, lifetime access. Watch at your own pace from anywhere online. It's as easy and simple as it gets. Just join, give it a try. You won't regret it. The key to everything I'm showing you here is freedom. That you want to be able to paint freely. That's the thing plaguing most people, even for the purpose of realism. If you want to paint realistically, this will help you. If you want to paint impressionistically, this will help you. If you want to paint expressionistically, this will help you. This will help you. Freedom is the thing, artists like, I think it was Pablo Picasso, not that he's a role model. This was a weird guy. I don't know. I don't remember much about him. I just remember kind of yucky feelings for what I read. But he said it took him like whatever time to learn how to paint and then whatever decades to unlearn what he learned. That is the part of unlearning. When kids draw and paint, they just do it. Not to say they're creating masterpieces, but there is a lot of freedom in their lines and in their shapes. That's the thing that makes it look like art, ultimately. And if you're missing that element, it seriously holds back your results. Seriously. It is the difference between a professional and an amateur. So check it out. I'm going to put a link below. And yeah, thank you. This is how basically you can support my work. I have been producing free videos here on YouTube since 2014, 15. That is a long time. I have, how many videos do I even have on this channel? Like 1,500? I don't remember, 1,600? I really don't remember by now, but hopefully this is a huge, abundant, free resource for everyone. And by the way, I mentioned towards the end of the video, but if you do want to just support me without any return, just support on Patreon. That's awesome too. Now, there are some exclusive demos. You do get credits at the end of the videos. But yes. There are a bunch of other stuff. There's the Watercolor Breakthrough Club. That's something I mention sometimes. I'll probably mention it more in a few of the upcoming videos. Right now, we've had a webinar, very successful. People joined, quite happy with it. I'm letting it grow slowly, and there will come a point where I'm like, yeah, the club is closed. There's no new members, because I really want to preserve and maintain what I have there. Okay, so look at the sky. Again, this blue needs to be lighter than the trees. Okay, so I'm being very careful here. But one thing it also does is it's a little more saturated. And hopefully when you put this blue in, it will start to enhance the overall sense of light. Because essentially what we're doing is we're getting rid of more and more paper white so that some of the paper white can shine. And the car in the bottom, which is our car, our old car, is going to not stay paper white. I'm going to add some kind of a champagne color to it. And that way, the highlights will mean something, right? That's what you want at the end of the day. The highlights to mean something, the shadows to mean something, and so on and so forth. And, as the person painting this, I actually got a really good impression of this while working. But if you're kind of falling for illusions, just walk away from the screen or put your phone down. Go make yourself coffee, get yourself a glass of water, come back, and you will see it. This is how these things work. You need some perspective. The impressionistic, realistic impression, so to speak, will click for you. It just sometimes disappears for a moment. One of the biggest superpowers you can have, by the way, as a painter, is to actually see it for yourself as you paint it. It's not always fully possible. Some painting processes are just slower, just more challenging, just more complex. But if you can start to see it, it will lead to a better result. And I will say that's why I'm a big fan of painting alla prima or putting down the final value and color, because it's a hack. It's a trick for seeing it immediately. And it gives you more wind behind your sails. That's the first order, second order, whatever order effect of being able to see it, seeing the end result, whether that's in your mind's eye or from what you have on paper. I'm a big fan of that. If you can paint the final value, final color you're interested in, that does go a long way. Look at this blue. This blue on its own is going to shift some things around, make things look a little more balanced. You see, just a touch of paint in a world of gray means a lot. And, hopefully you like this approach. I've been getting a lot of messages from people who appreciate it, and I appreciate you. Really, it means the world to know that what I do can help, and I'm happy I can maybe bring a fresh perspective. Look at this pre-wetting, and I'm going to push it to be a little darker. I'm very pleased and grateful that I can bring in an approach that's maybe a little more freedom oriented, and just reduces a lot of stress when painting with watercolor. That's what everyone's after. Just less stress, more enjoyment of whatever it is you're painting. And, that's what the Frustration-Free Watercolors course is for. So if you're into that kind of a thing, do check it out. Look at how that champagne on our car at the bottom, I think really added a lot. Now, honestly, I could, of course, develop this further, bring out more details, more specific nuances, but I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to add a few highlights. Look at how they instantly bring the cars there to the left. You kind of feel like there's something there on the road. You kind of feel like there's gaps and light caught in the trees. Maybe it's a traffic sign. Maybe it's a piece of metal catching the light. Whatever it is, look at the big, big impact that these small touches make. I really like this kind of a way of adding details in. You don't have to paint obsessively around your highlights. Just bring in some slightly opaque watercolor paint and you're good to go. It's not cheating, and opaque watercolor paint works really well for that, by the way. I do want to put a coat of very gentle blue over this car. I feel like it will benefit from looking a little cooler. So we're going to cool it off a bit with French ultramarine, some designer's gouache. The colors I use, again, a lot of Pyrrole Scarlet, Lemon Yellow, just basic stuff, but I mix all three in almost all of my mixes, which gives it the more organic feel. That's the most important part. I've completely flipped the temperatures on this car, by the way, and I love it. I don't mind. I kind of like the way it looks. And you know, this is a great way to add some depth, to add some nuance. You just glaze over what you got, and it looks good. You know, it looks really, really good. I will share with you in a few moments the final scan, and you'll get to see it in the full context. Hopefully the scan is high quality and conveys the colors well. My scanner tends to kind of obstruct some blues, so you have to kind of account for that and fix it in your mind's eye. But really grateful for you watching. Check out the frustration-free watercolor course if you want to receive credits at the end of the videos. Support me on Patreon. That's how you get that. Really appreciate your support over there. That's what keeps the roof over our head. That's what puts food on the table. And I'm super grateful that I can do this for a living. You know, that's pretty insane. That's really some 1% type of thing. Really, I have to admit it. It doesn't matter how much money I make, and I'm definitely not like a millionaire or anything like that. But it's a living. It's a good living. And I get to do what I love, which is paint 8% of my work time, work on editing videos, the rest. But, you know, that's an aspect of it. But in any case, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again real soon.